Genevieve.
Good morning, Jody.
Yes, I always love to say Genevieve.
Oh, yes, a number of people have called me Well, anyway, in Polish, it's Genevieve. So I've heard different.
Say that again in Polish.
Genevieve.
Oh, that's lovely.
And but here in Adrian, I like people to call me Genevieve because then I don't get mixed up with Virginia, Jennifer. Because if they keep saying Jenny, they never know which
Jenny there.
person you're talking about. So
And Jeziolkowski, correct?
that's
Jeziolkowski.
pretty much what it is. But in Polish, it's Jeziolkowski.
Oh, my.
It's a whole different.
And your father and grandfather came from Poland.
My father was born in Poland.
Poland,
Yes. On my mother's side, the great-grandparents would have been from Poland because my grandfather was born in Michigan. So, but and then my mother and all those.
So you're a Wolverine by birth then, Michigander.
Yes and no.
Because
I taught in Grand Ledge, and all those people that I worked with were Spartans, East Lansing people, because they worked the games. I even had to schedule our religious education programs around when the games were, because they wouldn't be there because they were working the stands and things. So I stuck with the Spartans.
Yes.
Sometimes they're good. And
I'm
sometimes
sorry you of him. Yes, I thought that. Well, anyway, moving right along. When we were talking yesterday about your life and what you had written, I thought maybe we should give Jim Hug a warning, our chaplain here, because I don't know how many places you were that the pastor or one of the priests died.
Many, and
Wasn't one
also one. If the pastor didn't die, it was the sister who was involved in an accident, and she died. So yes, it was many times.
one of our sisters?
One of our sisters. Yes, when I was in Helena, which is near Harbor Beach, Sister Joseph Bernice was in a car accident while looking for a position, because it was a time when we were getting our own ministries. And in Harbor Beach, Helena, we were only 3 people, and it was at the time that they were going to close Helena. Because it was being taken over by the parish school that was in Harbor Beach. So it's not like that people were losing anything, but the sisters could not go there. The number of sisters were being pulled back. And she had gone out to, I believe it was Mount Clemens, with another IHM sister. It was a rainy, dark night coming home, and they missed a stop sign. And Claudia was killed outright. The IHM sister,
Was that Carol Kelly?
that was Carol Kelly.
Wow.
And Carol survived, but I don't think she was able to go back to ministry after that. I'm not real sure on that.
But when you were at St. Ambrose, was that when Monsignor Van Antwerp died?
Yeah, he died too. And I was in Grand Ledge, and we got this phone call that the bishop was looking for the assistant pastor because he had a message for him. Finally, I said, I know where he is. It's a Friday night. He's out with the other priests having
Fun.
They're playing cards. It was the card night. So I told him which parish I thought they were at that day. And that's when he said to me, well, I need to tell him that your pastor died.
Was
So
that Pat Jackson?
That was Pat Jackson, yeah. And so, and then I went to, when I went to Nevada, yes, I was the outskirts in the parishes outside of Las Vegas itself. And one of the parishioners called me Easter Day. She said, "Oh, Father Marcos had a heart attack at the second Mass today." And I had seen him that morning because they always had sunrise Easter service. And, well, when it was all over with, we put everything away. And she called me and told me which hospital he was in, but he died the next day. He was a Franciscan. The Franciscans sent out another pastor. He had gone to California to make a retreat. On the way home from retreat, there was a pileup of cars because of fog. Like there was a 100-car pileup, but in his instance, he was killed outright.
So in short, our Jesuit chaplain
Should be safe at this point.
safe at this point. You mentioned Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
How many years were you in Las Vegas?
It was something like 9 or 10.
10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And did you live on the famous street called Church Street?
I lived on the famous Church Street. I lived on Church Street. But I worked for the Archdiocese, or the diocese.
Yes.
It was the diocese. And from the diocese, then I was sent out to these smaller country parishes to see what was happening in their religious education department.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And did you work with someone there in the diocese?
Sister Miriam Mullins.
Miriam Mo.
She's the one who, through ministry trust.
Was she a Church Street person also?
A few of those years, yes, and we lived together. But then she moved to one of the apartments closer to work. And
Do you think there are any of our sisters still in Henderson at the church on Church Street?
oh, there are a number of them yet.
Really?
Yes. And they live on Church Street because the hospital owns those particular houses. And
Who besides? I think Sister Michael Thomas is still there.
Michael Thomas is there, and Janice Scholl is still there, who were there when I was there. And I'm here almost 20 years, so there's longevity for these people.
And then our sister Phyllis Sikora and Katie McGrail and
Judy Nelson.
Judy Nelson.
I don't know if there's anyone else besides that.
That's all I'm aware of at the present time.
Mm-hmm.
Before Las Vegas and before you were 10 years old, what was life like when you were 1 to 10?
1 to 10? Life was fine. We always lived close to my father's parents. So during the week, we would be able to visit with them and do things. They had a huge garden, and they had either 5 or 6 different fruit trees in that. So, no, that was the place to go to snitch off the trees.
Yes.
And my mother's parents lived on the family farm. So on Sundays, we were with her side of the family. So growing up was with family all the time. Some
And a
way
good
or other.
Sunday meal at Grandma's.
Yeah, Sunday meal at Grandma's. All the children sitting together having their own meal while the adults had their meal. Yeah, and it's a farm, so they're used to big quantity type things,
Yes.
quality type things. Yeah.
And you probably helped out. You were a helping hand, a farm hand.
Yeah, there were
Even-
different things we got to work with, like out in the field. When they were picking up the hay, if it wasn't all picked up, we had these little rakes that we could go on and get them little piles, and then they'd come back and pick it up. Oh, the raspberry field. out picking peas.
That's where your love of the earth began.
A love of the earth. I mean, we always went out to the garden to see what's happening in the garden. I have a cousin, excuse me, who I had to send some things that I had of her mother's, and she sent me a thank you letter. But part of it was, when you'd come over and visit my mother, I could never understand you going out into the yard and checking everything. She said, I hate to tell you, but I'm doing the same thing right now. And not only me, but my friends, we all go out and check how are the flowers growing, how is the garden growing. So it's...
You must love the new permaculture area.
yeah, I watch it very closely, yes. I can't get in there, but...
Now, when you're talking about the farm, let's place a city nearby. You were born in?
I was born in Alpena, Michigan, but the farm was in Posen, Michigan, about 30 miles away.
And I presume you had Adrian Dominicans for grade school.
No, I had Felicians for grade school. I had Adrian Dominicans for high school. The Felicians did not have a high school connected with their school, which is kind of interesting now because the school I went to, which was called St. Mary's, is now and they had no high school, is now the central school for the whole city because the other grade schools have closed. And it's just interesting.
Yeah.
No, I had the Adrians in high school.
Now, why do I associate you so closely to the Felicians? What's the tie there?
Because my older sister was with the Felicians. And at
Is
some
that
point, she transferred to the Adrian Dominicans.
I see.
And I think it was like 20, 25 years after she had been with the Felicians.
And her name was Jean, correct?
Jean.
And she died here at Maria, did she?
She died here at Maria.
Not too long ago.
Oh,
Maybe
about
10,
4 years.
4 years. Genevieve, were there other women from the Felician order that joined us or transferred to the...
Yeah, quite a few. Well, her friend Joanne Guizdala, who just died a few months ago, they came at the same time. And I lived with Julie Wolney and Mary Tardif at St. Margaret's in St. Clair Shores. And they at some point, when we lived together, they knew they were going to do something. They didn't know what. Life was in transition for them. But they eventually came to the Felicians too. They were Felicians and came to Adrian.
Was it because of the change they saw in our community?
And their community wasn't ready to make those changes, and they were ready. So they just moved on to where patience had run out. There are others who are doing what we feel we could do, so let's join them and be part of them.
Well, how did you happen to enter? You went to the Adrians in high school. Was that St. Bernard's?
That was St. Bernard's. Well, they were my high school teachers, and
the rest is history.
Good example, and
So this was after you graduated from high school?
Oh no, this was after sophomore year. I didn't wait that long. Once I knew what was
needed,
and what was going on, and I just, this is the time. Let's do it. I mean, I'm not very good at procrastinating and waiting and waiting and waiting. It's if we're going to do it, let's do it. And
was your sister Jean sad that you entered the Adrians and not the Felicians at that time?
I don't think she was as sad as their novice mistress. Their novice mistress appeared in town one day. And Detroit and Alpena is not next door. That was an all-day travel at that point. There wasn't even airport travel. Could have been bus travel yet, but anyway, no, it was the novice mistress who was talking to me and thinking, don't you think you ought to join your sister? And I'm sitting there saying, no. And it's,
Which Adrian Dominican assisted you to get ready? You
Well, the
finished
one-
your sophomore year.
I finished the sophomore year. I had originally talked to Sister Dennis Ann Woodstock,
Yes.
but Joe Mary Sullivan was there, Angela Marie, Anne Francis, Grace Esther.
Oh my.
They were in the high school, but
Great
there were
women.
other ones in, oh yeah, and great women.
So you had a lot of help.
I had a lot of help.
Yes.
And, even when I entered, it was by bus from Alpena to Detroit. And it was Joseph Mary and her mom and dad who picked me up at the bus station, took me to Visitation Convent where I spent the night. They saw that I got to Adrian the next day. They coordinated a lot of things. And then when we had the Sunday afternoon visits with the sisters, it was Angela Marie who was on campus to make sure that I had company. So now the others,
You didn't have a
weren't
chance to
around.
get lonesome then.
no,
Wow.
it was just
Did you continue your school at the academy then?
at the academy. My graduation says academy. So,
The academy and then Siena Heights.
the Siena Heights.
And then
And
Siena.
then U of D.
U of D.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what was your focus at U of D?
Theology and,
Is it science?
no, it was theology and, right now,
Well, theology is the most,
yeah,
most,
that
most
was,
important.
that was,
That served you well in
it served me well.
not only for your teaching, but also for the religious education that you became involved in.
And my own spiritual life. It just made you start looking at things a little bit differently.
And this was even before Vatican II.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Well, just before. Because I think it was, let's see, it was in the early 60s. So, yeah.
What crowd were you, what's the name of your crowd?
We didn't have a name, but we referred to ourselves as the bestest crowd. I think the crowds received names when Sister Patrick Jerome
Yes.
took over while I was with Sister Edmund. So
The last of
the last of Sister Edmund's groups.
Yeah.
But we referred to ourselves as the bestest crowd.
The best. That was around 1951, 52.
Well, we entered in 50.
The bestest crowd.
The
I'll
bestest crowd.
remember that. So you've celebrated your silver jubilee too,
And golden.
and golden.
And we're at 65 right now, so the next one will be
70.
70, yes.
Oh my! I know you're residing in Maria right now. How did that come about?
Because one day, a Saturday, I came over to the Maria computer room to check any emails and things. And of course, I'm sure I played a game. But in those days, I used the stairs a lot. Well, I'm going from second floor down to first floor, and I often walk the stairs using both handrails. But suddenly, and I'm glad I was holding on, I'm sitting on the step. Oh, what's going on? I picked myself up and took about 3 more steps, and the same thing happened. So I got up, and then I took about 5 steps, and it happened a third time. Well, but this time I'm almost downstairs to the lobby, the first floor. I immediately went to Janet Cox at the reception desk and said, Janet, I'm having this problem, and I need to spend the night here. I cannot go back to Weber, and nobody will have any idea if I fall down.
What to do?
Yeah. She said, fine. So she got the admitting nurse went through my history, what was going on, what happened. They agreed I should not be there.
Walking.
They found a room, and well, I was in that room for quite a while. And then they found a more permanent room that I'm in now. But I spent a lot of time in a wheelchair before they could help me. And well, I shouldn't say before they could help me, but help me in enough so that I could move around on
Or
my,
that you were ready for some
that I could use that
physical
walker.
therapy.
Oh, physical therapy, they started immediately.
Oh.
But
What was the diagnosis, may I ask?
well, at that point, I knew I had shingles from my right knee down to my right ankle. But it wasn't the shingles. It took the doctor a week to discover that some people who have shingles develop neuropathy. And I had neuropathy of the full right leg, and that's what we're still working on. And our
Well, you've worked.
rehab department really needs to be credited for a lot. They just kept working with me, and
It takes two to tango, you know.
well, it takes two to tango. And yes, I've spent a lot of time up in rehab to follow what they suggest, and so.
Do you think the shingles were a reaction to your retirement after 16 years as the transportation director?
I was kind of complaining about that. I said I should have had shingles 16 during that 16 years, not after I retired. That well, no, I don't think so.
So how did you happen to be tapped on the shoulder for that position? Which I might be, in case I don't get a chance to say, just love you.
The community was looking for volunteers to take positions where people were retiring for the second time already. You know, they had already used up all their energies and they needed some new people. And so I just called up and said, you know, I'm not really ready to retire yet, but I might be able to do something and help you with this. And they called me up and said, oh yeah, we have a position for you. That's not one that the retired sisters had anyway. So it all worked out real well. And I did come in for an interview and things, and I was able to make the decision, yes, I'd be able to do this.
And who was the director before you came?
Andrea Bruton.
Oh. I'm sure she was helpful in giving you direction.
Yes, and letting me know what to do, what things. And my coworkers had been there a number of years, so they were very helpful also. They, you know, if I wasn't noticing something that needed to be done, they'd nicely say, do you know?
That sounds like Margaret Gray.
Oh,
I bet she
yeah,
was
Margaret, every once in a while, yes.
Yes. And who were the others that were?
Joe Butson and Judy Froelich and Jean Camalucci.
Oh my, that's quite a group.
Yeah.
Quite a group. What were some of the challenges of your position there?
People who didn't tell me on time that they were coming.
They presumed
They presumed I knew
that the limousine would be there.
Yeah, that was really, because suddenly you had to rearrange everything. You know, the office support office had, you know, these long erasers
Yes.
that worked kind of like a ballpoint pen. Yeah. We went through several of those because our schedule was always done in pencil, so we could erase and rejuggle. And
that was before computers.
Well, it was before computers, yes, but even though we started having computers, they asked whether or not I wanted to do the schedule. I said, no, we erase and change too often in a day. I said, no. And the coworkers knew what to erase and put their name in another spot if I had not been in the office and they had to change something. So
Was there any time during the 16 years that stands out as an unusual?
I don't think anyone else that was in that department ever had the experience of bringing in the cloistered sisters for a retreat with the Master General. And
That was during Sister Donna Markham's time, wasn't it?
yes, it was. And my coworkers were a bit nervous. Like, cloistered sisters? How do we talk to them? What will we say? Do we have to keep quiet? Well, when they got back after the first load, they said, don't worry. They just go on and on and on and on. Not necessarily to the driver, but to each other because they knew each other. Even if they were from different parts of the country, somehow they knew each other and they said, don't worry. They'll go on and on and on. So they did. That was really it was just kind of to.
I remember a little background where the Phyllis Sikora, who was in the Farmington cloister, was given the task to find a place where all the cloistered sisters, in the Dominican cloistered sisters in the United States could go for retreat, because that's the only way the Master General would come. So eventually it was Sister Donna who invited all these women to be our guests here. Yeah. It was a joyful time on campus, wasn't it?
It was, because I think everyone was quite surprised and watching. And if you happened to be at Weber at that time, the Master General was, not that he was telling jokes, but had them engaged in such a way that they kept laughing and enjoying it. You just knew they were enjoying their whole time. So I never did get to the dining room to know what happened in the dining room. Did they just take the one dining room? And
I don't know. We'll have to ask
I wasn't.
That.
I wasn't.
I presume that's what
They probably did.
Happened. Yes. One last thing. One of your favorite missions was?
Any of the missions that were, kind of the small missions, like the one in Helena near Harbor Beach, in Nevada, the Overton and the Pahrump and the Mesquite, they were all small missions.
But you were principal in?
Helena, Harbor Beach. Yeah. But
11 years at Grand Ledge?
Yes.
That must have been a lovely experience. That was a small parish too, wasn't it?
Yes, but next to a big town, big city. It's very close to Lansing, so we had all kinds of amenities that we needed without having to go too far.
And you were one of the first residents in the Regina renovated facility.
That's
correct?
Right. And you and I,
right.
Pat Stelma, and Rosemary Conlon.
Rosemary was your housemate.
Yes, Rosemary and I lived together.
In a two-bedroom on fourth floor.
On fourth floor, and we lived together quite a while until she thought, maybe I should go over to Maria. I every once in a while need a little bit of help, but I was never there, so I was not able to give her. So she.
Would I be right in surmising that these days that you really enjoy the peace and quiet of our lives when we can find it?
When we can find it. Yes, when we can find it, because the aides and the nurses on third floor keep saying, "You're never home." I said, "Well, you can always come down to PT and find me. I'll be there." But so it's a little joke up there.
Well, you're lucky to have your sister Carolyn here living in Adrian.
Yep.
And I suspect you have some kind of, you're part of your heart in California.
A little bit, since
Because-
there's another sister living there, and I'm going there in about 10 days to visit them. And it's kind of an annual, yearly meeting to be there at Christmas time.
And you watch the parade while you're there? The Rose Bowl parade?
No, because we get home before the parade. We come home
Fortunately.
before New Year's Day, but we watch it here.
Well, may your Christmas be blessed and your New
Yes.
Year's, and we'll look forward to you coming back. And it's true the aides will be saying, Sister Genevieve, you're never here. Thanks so much for today.